Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. Today on Cookiecast, it's our newest podcast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Join me and hear what I'm ranting about today. I'm sure there'll be some ranting. This is Cookiecast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. That's my old bones sitting down. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Cookiecast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. I am Cookie, and as always, and I say always, this is the second one, I'm here alone. See, I waited a while so that sound didn't go on the podcast, and it didn't happen, so I was like, oh, maybe it's not going to happen this time, knowing full well it happens every time. Waited, I was like, I'll crack on. So there's that sound that I was waiting for. Which brings me to my first topic of conversation today. Technology. Technology is, I think we can all agree, a wonderful thing. Right now, if anybody is listening to this, you are listening to a podcast that has winged its way to you through the magic of the internet, possibly even through the airwaves rather than wires and cables and things. As Joe Rogan once said, do any of us know how any of this works? I know how I get the podcast to the internet. I can't say I know how elements of it work, but technology is a great thing. And as a society, we've advanced in leaps and bounds. However, technology is a great thing up until the point it isn't. Sometimes technology is actually a detractor. So I had a day working today where nothing worked. My work laptop was like, "Oh, you've turned me on. Okay, I need to restart in 4 hours' time. So just bear that in mind." Like, alright, cool, I'm sure that's a really important update. For definite. Or it's just, I've turned you on and you've decided in 4 hours you need to restart. So that was the start of the day, bear that in mind. You need to do a restart at some point. Everything was fine up until I did the restart, and then everything went to shit after that. One thing wasn't working, another thing wasn't working. We use a website to store information. That website has been terrible for about 2 weeks now. Connection drops, it won't save stuff. It's an absolute nightmare. And today it finally went, do you know what? No, not today. I'm staying in bed today, kids. I'm in lying this afternoon, and it just wouldn't work. So all the information that was needed, gone. Couldn't save anything, any changes I made, couldn't save to the website. And yeah, then it was just a slow decline of every other system that I needed. Was like, oh, well, that guy said he's having a lie-in this afternoon, so we might do the same. Like, yeah, that's wonderful, is that? So yeah, technology is great, and technology is wonderful, apart from when it isn't. So, just wanted to clear that up, get that out of the way. Let's go to the list. I made a list. Number one on the list, done. Right, so, in the last week since I last recorded this, fairly standard week, except Sunday, had tickets to go and see my favourite of all the podcasts, barring, obviously, Cookiecast. My favourite podcast, absolute number one favourite, which is Hollywood Babylon. Hollywood Babylon is Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman. Anybody who is a fan of the podcast in any shape or form, anybody who's ever visited the website will know Kevin Smith. I suppose it's been quite a big part of my life since I was about 18, back when I saw Clerks. As I've said in the past, probably listened to Kevin Smith a little bit too much, in the sense that this podcast wouldn't be a podcast without a little bit of influence from a man who said, if you think you want to do something, get out there and go and do it. And I was like, you know something? For like 18 months I've been thinking about doing a podcast. That's probably too long, so yeah. Hollywood Babylon. Myself and Mike, big shout out to Mike. We jumped in the car and drove to Manchester. Apparently went through some kind of time warp to get there. Left at 10 to 4, got there. Well, we arrived in like Oldham at 5:05, which was like, how is this even possible? And then we were having a drink that we'd been to a shop at a petrol station and bought at like 5:25. Like, no idea how that's actually happened. The sat nav took us on a very, very strange route. What seemed like a strange route, but turned out to be a particularly quick route. So we got there. Ticket said 7 o'clock, so we were like 7 o'clock kickoff. However, no, that was doors at 7. Not sure if that's something that could be made a little clearer in the future. If we'd have known it was doors at 7 and we'd have known it was like more of an 8 o'clock kickoff, we might have gone and done something different. We might have gone and like had something to eat, had a sit down, or got a drink or something. But hey, that's just one of those things. If it had been a little clearer, would have helped. So yeah, we joined a queue. We talked to a couple of people in the queue. Listened to the various conversations that were going on around us. Tried to work out what time we thought we might go in. Tried to work out what time we thought that meant it would kick off. Got in, straight to the toilet. I've learned from experience that it's always good to go to the toilet as soon as you get to Manchester Apollo. Then you don't have to deal with any queues or anything like that later on. Looked at the merchandise. Bought a really cool poster. Long story short, there's on Hollywood Babylon they do this thing called Creepy Clown, which I don't want to step on anyone's toes by reenacting what that is. So if you're interested and you don't know what it is, look up Hollywood Babylon Creepy Clown. Check it out on YouTube or something. So it's a poster of that. It's like an artist impression of that sort of sketch. Kevin Smith, Ralph Garman, Bill Cosby as well, which is meh. But it's signed Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman. That was cheaper than a t-shirt, which I was just completely baffled by. Was like, I don't understand what I'm looking at, but I'll get the poster. So my intention is for anybody who watches the podcast on YouTube, my intention is to put that in a frame. And I think I'm going to frame it. I'm going to put it up. I'm now looking, that's why. I'm going to put it up, I think, behind the sofa. So, look out for that in the future. I've got another poster. Pretty sure I've got a signed Pitch Shifter poster from when I saw them. So, I'll also think I'll put that up as well. So, yeah, we checked out the merchandise. I bought a poster. We went and found our seat, which was interesting because I've been to Manchester Apollo a few times. Long time ago, I saw Skindred supporting Rob Zombie, and that was awesome. But it was really weird because it's like a theatre, so it's got seats. But for that gig, they like, and I presume other gigs that they do, they take the seats out. So that's interesting. But this was a sit-down show. And me and Rob went to see Bill Burr a few weeks back. And we went last year to see Bill Burr. No, I don't think it was last year. It might have been the year before. A couple of years ago. And we've always sort of sat near the back. I think the first time we went like second to last row. When we went earlier, a few weeks ago, we were still quite near the back. when I checked the tickets as me and Mike were walking down, I was like, oh, well, these seats have got double letters, but our tickets are a single letter. So it's like, I wonder if that means we're close to the front. So we walked and walked and walked, and we got to the front front sort of section of seats, and it was still double letters. So we kept walking and walking and walking, and next thing it's like, oh, this is our row. And I mean, in an ideal world, yes, you could be on the front row, but at the same time, you're probably craning your neck a little. We were 30 feet from where the table was that they sit at. I was like, cool. 2 seats in from the sort of the middle side. Cool. Other than the fact that the seats at Manchester Apollo are very close together. And I'm quite tall, amongst other things. So there was this thing towards the back end, I was in absolute agony. Like, I was so torn between, this is great, I'm really enjoying this, I wish it could go on longer, and I am in absolute agony. I think I might be doing long-term damage to my right leg. I need this to end because I need to be able to get out. So, yeah, that was a mixture of things. But anyway, we went in, we sat down, we got seated. Everybody sort of filed in. People milling around in and out, drinks and stuff. So, 8:15, they came out. I didn't take a massive amount of pictures. I think I took a picture very early on. I took a picture of the stage and stuff. I took a picture of them sat at the table. I took some pictures right at the end. I like to get a picture just as sort of like, hey, look, this is what I did. But I also work on that. I don't want to live my life through the lens. So I'm more than happy to put the camera down, sort of thing. But I do like to get a picture, which I snapped a few pictures. So yeah, the show, I know they're doing like a run of, certainly UK, I know that they started in Ireland, so there was like Ireland, and they're doing a UK run, and then they're off to go back home, I think. I don't think they're doing any Europe dates. So knowing that they're doing like a close run, I did have a suspicion that the shows might be a little more condensed, because obviously you don't want to, with it being a supposed weekly show, if you do 5 shows in a week, then you're just going to burn through all your stuff in one go, then have nothing to talk about, or you're going to end up repeating yourself. So each segment sort of had like one thing. There was like the shout outs where they read people's emails and stuff, people that have written in. So obviously that's for each individual show, that's fine. One thing I said to Mike was, Ralph Garman, a man who's known for the number of impressions he does, I'm pretty sure he did like 2 or 3 impressions, which was a bit like, that's a shame. Not knocking it, I get that things have to work a particular way. It was super cool, super fun, laughed a lot, very enjoyable. Kevin Smith did a Q&A, which was unexpected but was really good. He was like, you want to ask a question? Put your hand up and we'll answer it. I think that's how they were intending on padding the show out, which was cool. People got a chance to ask questions. Again, I was in that situation of going, I kind of want to ask a question, but right now I can't think of what it is. And I don't know, too scared, too shy. So I was a bit like, I don't know, brain doesn't think, can't ask question, I'll leave it. So, yeah, the one question I would have asked was the first question that somebody asked. They asked about the Hollywood TV show. So the question I would have asked did get answered, so that was fine for me. I think Mike enjoyed it. He seemed to say that he really enjoyed it, so that was cool. Got to stop saying that'd be good. So yeah, it was great. The ticket, the seats were great. The tickets were great. Really, just it was great all round. A little bit painful towards the end, but you got to pay for your art. So thoroughly enjoyable experience. Good drive there and back, although I will come to that. So yeah, that was that. So that was Sunday night. And I'm like, yay, cool, I got to see Hollywood Babylon live. Monday, during the day, I was kind of like thinking back to, it was cool. I went to see Hollywood Babylon. I really wanted to see it. I was even working on the principle that I was going to go to America and see it. That's something that I had on the cards for sort of a couple of years' time. Amongst other podcasts that I want to see live. And I was like, well, they rarely come here, so I might have to go there. So it was cool to get to see them. And that was that. But during the day on Monday, I was like, I'm not sure it really sunk in. So like I was saying at the start, Kevin Smith's been like kind of in some ways a big part of my life, going back to like 18. I'm going to be 39 this year, so nearly 21 years. Might have even been before, I was 17 or something. I saw Clerks, and it was like there was at that time, and probably since, there's not really been much like it. And then Mallrats, Jason Amy, Dogma, Jane Silent Bob Strikes Back, other things, Zack and Miri Make a Porno, Tusk, Yoga Hosers, the podcasts that I listen to, and the number of times I've heard the story of Kevin Smith's heart attack, or how him and Scott Mosier met, or that sort of stuff. Videos of him crying on the internet because he watched The Flash, or that sort of stuff. But it sort of suddenly hit me on Monday, which was strange that it didn't hit me at the time, that Kevin Smith has been quite a big influence on my life in various ways, and I actually got to see him and be in the same room, and he was like I said before, like 30 feet away. It was a bit like, whoa, that's quite daunting in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was super cool. Big shout out to Mike for coming. It was short notice. Didn't have to be short notice. I screwed that one up. But super pleased that he was able to come. Super pleased that we went, and super pleased that he enjoyed it. He seemed to enjoy it as much as I did, so that was cool. As is often the case, big shout out to Leanne for making it possible for me to go. I even got to drive her car, or our car, as I like to call it. So yeah, a super cool experience. Something that wasn't super cool, and if you've listened to the first episode of the Darkest Timeline podcast, you'll know that one of my huge gripes is driving. And when I say driving, I mean drivers. And when I say drivers, I mean, well, let's face it, it's Audi drivers. Although on Sunday it was also Mercedes drivers. And then you're never going to get away from the BMW driver. There was the odd other person, but Audis and Mercedes were the ones on Sunday. So I have a question, and if somebody can tell me how this works, I'd really appreciate it. Not for any other reason other than I'd just like to know how certain parts of the world work. So, here's the scenario. You're driving on the motorway. So, motorway is 70 miles an hour. So, I'm not the kind of guy who goes, oh, I'm going to drive at 70. If I'm driving behind someone that's going a little bit slower than that, I'm prepared to overtake. And if overtaking means, I went up to 72, but I got past them, fine. There have been points in time where I've been driving and just sort of like, you're driving and talking, or you're driving and you're trying to look at something, or you're trying to make sure that you're doing the right thing or whatever, and then you look down and it's like, oh wow, that's a lot more than the speed I thought I was going, So I understand that. I understand, I went a little bit over 70, 72. And I understand the principle of, you get 10% and you get You get 10% and this and that and the other, and there's all these different rules that people will tell you. And they tell you that driving at night's different to driving during the day, and all of that. And, before I get started on this, I am aware that you can get sat-navs that will tell you when there is a speed camera. So you could go 100 miles an hour at the point in time when there's no speed camera, and then, oh, there's a speed camera coming, slow it right down, pass the speed camera, speed back up. You could do that, that's fine. So, if the rule of the road is 70 miles an hour on the motorway, why is it that I get passed by, again, Audis, Mercedes, BMWs, that are doing way over 70? We're talking, we're probably grazing triple-digit numbers here. Certainly more like 90 miles an hour. How does it work? Does it work on the principle that that person says, well, I'm prepared to pay the speeding fine if I get caught because I drive this car and it's more expensive and I can afford to pay a speeding fine? But then aren't there points involved? I should probably look into this more. I should probably look into it and see, what happens if you get, because, touch wood at this point in time, I've not had to deal with a speeding offence. I don't understand, though, how I'm supposed to drive at 70, but it's okay for you to drive at 90. And if you're driving at 90 miles an hour, what possible reason would you have to pull into the slow lane? In which reality are you driving slow when you're driving at 90 miles an hour? So it's often the case, from what I've seen, this is usually at night when there's less cars around, so you can see it more. It's often the case that let's say I'm in the middle lane. I don't sit in the middle lane, I'm just in the middle lane at this moment in time. Let's pick on my personal favourite, the Audi. Blast past in the fast lane. Blast past at 90. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're doing 90 and not more like 100. So, we've blasted past at 90, we've got past me, we've pulled into the middle lane, so that makes sense because you've used the fast lane to go fast, quote unquote fast. You pulled into the middle lane. Now I know recently there was a law change that says you can't sit in the middle lane, so is it that? Is it at that point that you pull into the slow lane because you can't sit in the middle lane, but you're still doing 90, so then 2 seconds later, you have to overtake a car that's doing 67. It seems like a lot of effort, a lot of wear and tear, surely, on that vehicle to just be blasting about left, right and centre. So, if someone can explain to me the mentality behind that, I would greatly appreciate that. I'll have to get the one Audi driver I know who has literally got his new Audi. Maybe I'll have to get Thomas Quinn to come on and explain it to me. Although he certainly will tell you that he is not your average Audi driver. So that is that's Sunday basically. That's the driving question and Hollywood Bad one. Super cool. Monday was kind of a day to reflect what happened. That was super cool. So yeah, that's that. That's Sunday. I have mentioned before that I'm a massive stand-up fan. Been watching a lot of stand-up recently because of various different reasons. If I work from home, I like to have noise, but I don't want to be distracted. So, easiest thing to do is to put some stand-up on that I've seen before and I know quite well. So I'm not distracted by it, but it's there in the background. So I've just been blasting through the classics to me. Joe Rogan's last 2 specials, all 3 Tom Segoyas, Bert Kreischer. And then there's this new guy, new to me. I don't think he's new. I think he's been around. So there's a guy called Anthony Jeselnik. There we go, Anthony Jeselnik. And he has 2 specials on Netflix. One is called Thoughts and Prayers, which is the older of the 2, and then he's got a recent one that's just come out. And the reason that I was first made aware of it was he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is where I see a lot of people that I don't really know, and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And then immediately after seeing that he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, on Netflix it popped up, new special. So he's got a new special called Fire in the Maternity Ward. I was talking to somebody the other day saying, oh, I've just discovered this new comedian, new to me comedian. And I said it's like this. And I was like, the best way I can describe him, and it's hard to explain, the best way I can describe him is he's like an American Frankie Boyle. But only because it's really dark humour. There's a lot of jokes about dropping babies. He does a whole section on dropping babies, how it's like his hobby. He's not a massive fan of his family, so there's a lot of mum and dad and siblings and how terrible they are jokes. Has no issues about joking about child abuse and all that sort of stuff. So it's super dark. Watched the first one a couple of weeks ago, maybe. Watched the second one. Preferred the first one because I found that the second one, whether I just got into the groove of this comedian or whether the second one was what I thought it was, I knew what the punchline to the jokes were going to be before he said them. So I was like, well, if I just worked that out super fast, are the jokes more obvious, or have I just got into, like I say, got into the groove of this comedian? I don't know. But the Thoughts and Prayers one's very good. It's like a lot of, not so much one-liners, but like the first half's a lot of shorter jokes, and then the second half's more like stories. So I'll tell you a story that's really dark and really horrible. You'll laugh along the way, and then ultimately there will be a punchline at the end of it. So that's interesting, an interesting take on stand-up. I kind of recommend stand-up to people. If you're a stand-up person and you like dark humour, because believe me, it is dark, check that out. So as I was saying, I've been working through the stand-ups again. Quick drink, because it's that time of year, so I've had 3 litres of water today and I'm still parched. Sorry, it's difficult to drink when it's just you. Like when the other guys are here, it's like, oh, you talk and I'll drink. But yeah, super parched, very warm. I'm worried about the fact that I don't have any shorts that fit, and I'm probably already in shorts weather. So, stand-up comedians. I did a podcast. Might even be a podcast that goes up in the next couple of weeks. One of the bullshit casts, where I talked about discovering new comedians and talked about Bert Kreischer. And I can hands down say my number 1 stand-up special used to be the last 2 that Joe Rogan have done. They were just immense. But Bert Kreischer's stand-up special, Secret Time, is phenomenal. It is off the charts funny. I am this is what I said in this podcast. I am absolutely gutted that I missed the opportunity to see him, because he was here like a couple of weeks ago, and I got there too late. Then found out he was coming to the UK. Tried to get tickets, and it was like, I'm not giving you 120 quid for a ticket because you scalped a ticket. Go fuck yourself. But part of me was like, but I really want to see him because he's really cool. So, another recommendation from me, if you like stand-up like me, Bert Kreischer's Secret Time. Treat yourself to the one before it. They're both on Netflix. Bert Kreischer's The Machine. The joke he's most famous for, I imagine he'll have that put on his gravestone. Bert Kreischer, The Machine. If anybody doesn't know that one, that's the Russian mafia story, which I think probably launched his towards fame a little bit more than he already was, and it's certainly how I heard about him. But my number one stand-up special at the moment is Bert Kreischer's Secret Time. So if you like stand-up and if you want to take a recommendation from me, give that a whirl, because it's super fun. So back to the list. Okay. Quick mention about movies. So I just watched a lot. I watch a lot of movies at the moment. I went through a point in time where I wasn't really watching all that many, and then recently just non-stop movies, like a film a day, every day, sometimes two, sometimes more. Just film after film after film, rewatching a lot of stuff, watching new stuff. I went to the cinema 3 times in 2 days. I watched Captain Marvel, I watched Shazam, and I watched Avengers Endgame. Captain Marvel was what I felt to be very average. It was a film that I wasn't hugely excited about seeing, but I knew I needed to see it to watch Endgame. Turned out that wasn't true, so that was that. I believe there is an intention to do an Endgame podcast with Sam, certainly, and possibly Ed, but it's been on the cards for a while and nothing's come of it, so I'm not sure that's the case. If not, I might do a full spoiler-free or spoiler-full Endgame podcast myself, because like I said last time, one of the reasons for doing this podcast is to get back to talking about the stuff that I want to talk about: movies, games, stand-up comedians, drivers and how terrible they are, that sort of stuff. But I did want to mention Endgame. I think Endgame is probably closing in on being a $3 billion movie. I think it will take the top spot. It'll knock Avatar off. And that's fine. I think the way they've done it and the way they've advertised it and the whole people can't talk about it, you can't talk about it. Give it a couple of weeks and then say, we're going to lift the spoiler ban, so you have to go and see it this weekend, because as of Monday people can officially spoil it. Another great tactic to get people in the cinema on those seats. Sorry, drink again. However, as for the movie itself, I'm not going to review it now and I'm not going to spoil it. What I will say is Avengers Infinity War is probably one of my favourite films, in the sense that if I just want to put something on that I just want to watch and I want to thoroughly enjoy, it is my go-to film. I've seen that film about 15 times or something. I've watched it 3 times in the last month, I think. I watched it probably about 6 weeks ago or something. I watched it. Then I watched it again before going to see Endgame. And then I've watched it since I've seen Endgame. So take that as it is. It's a film I thoroughly enjoy. Endgame is very different to Infinity War. And the only thing I'm going to say at this point in time, without reviewing that film, which like I say I'll do later, is take away from all the way it's been advertised, and you definitely have to see this film because then nobody can spoil it, and it's going to be spoiled, so you've got to see it. No, at no point did anybody talk about whether it was a good film or not. And I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm not. Don't read into this as me going, it's a terrible film. Personally, I feel like I need to see it again, because I'm not sure I've quite taken it in properly. But it's very different to Infinity War. Let's put it like that. Of those 3 films I saw at the cinema, I thoroughly enjoyed Shazam. I was super excited to go and watch Shazam. And I went to see it weeks after it had come out. Me and Sam went to see it, and we were the only people there. Which was cool. That's my ideal of a trip to the cinema. And I thoroughly enjoyed that film. That was super fun. DC seemed to be getting their act together. Yeah, I might try and convince Sam to do a Shazam and Endgame wrap-up podcast. A film I watched recently, which I've never seen, but it's been on my list of I really should watch that film, is the film Drive. Very different to, like, me and Sam had a conversation about it. It was like, if you read the blurb of that film, the film is different to what you're told it's about, which is interesting. Super cool, good film. I really enjoyed it. What I will say is, really slow in places. Really slow. Like, wow, this is slow. Like, you physically watching it thinking, this is slow. On the flip side, super, like, hyper violent. Like, they show, it's like almost gore to a degree. Like, they'll happily show you an injury. There's a couple of scenes in it that are like, wow, that's intense. I can't imagine if it's on your list of films that you want to see, you've probably seen it, because I'm late to the party. If you haven't, and it's something that you thought you might like, give it a try. It is slow in places, but it makes up for that in other ways at other points. So that's cool. Another film I watched that I kind of wanted to see and got the opportunity because it was on Prime is a film called Don John. I don't know if I mentioned this on a bullshit cast or whether I said I was going to talk about this and review it. If that's the case, then I'll talk about it now. Don John is a film that was written, produced and directed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which is cool. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he has his own production company, which it's done through. I've sort of said to people, it's kind of like an indie film with famous people in. So Scarlett Johansson's in it, Brie Larson's in it, Julianne Moore's in it, Tony Danza, the woman who was in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, she's in it. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I'd seen a trailer for it a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Then randomly saw a trailer for it again recently. I was like, oh man, I really wanted to see that at the time. Did a search. There it is, sitting on Prime. Gave it a watch. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really, really interesting. Really nice little film. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the main character, and he's like super into. He's one of these sort of people. He's like, he looks after himself. He takes care of his body. He's got an apartment that he takes care of. He cleans it and he makes it all nice and stuff. He's got a car that he really likes. He enjoys spending time with his friends, going out and pulling women like all the time. All of this stuff, but he's also addicted to porn, which I thought was an interesting kind of twist to this. He meets Scarlett Johansson one night, sort of chases her, which is he doesn't really have to do. So that's kind of different. They end up in a relationship, and she wants him to give up the porn and try and better himself. And he starts doing a night class where he meets Julianne Moore, and there's like she's just very strange. I'm not going to basically tell you the whole film. That's just like a brief overview. Really good film, really fun to watch. I really enjoyed it. I was really glad that I'd taken the time out to watch it. It was one of those, I nearly watched it again the other day, but I'm not sure if it felt like it was too soon to watch it again. Some films you can just put on, watch it. More your action stuff. If you've got like action scenes, you're like, yeah, I can watch that action scene again. This is just a guy and a relationship. If you get the opportunity, I recommended it to Mr. Panas. I'm not sure if he's watched it yet. The great thing about things like Netflix and Prime is if you've got these subscriptions and you think, oh, I fancy watching that, and you do a search and it's on there, it's like, I've saved so much money recently. To be fair, I have also been burnt by it because I checked if the film Warrior was on either of them, because it used to be on Netflix, and when I did a search for it, it wasn't there, and I was like, oh man. Bought it on Blu-ray, went on to Netflix the next day. I'm like, why does it say that Warrior's on Netflix? Like, yeah. I think it cost me like £7 or something, so not the end of the world, but still paid in the ass. So that's movies. The last thing I wanted to sort of cover, one thing at the moment is I don't have a lot of time for playing games. Playing games is like how I decompress. Anybody that knows me will know that. But at the moment, there just isn't the time. There's so much stuff at the moment there isn't time for. I haven't been to the gym in like 6 weeks. I could tell you that that's because I haven't got the time, but that's only 50% of the reason. I don't have the time and opportunity to play games. For example, I'm recording this podcast now instead of taking the opportunity to play computer games. But that's not to say I haven't played anything. So I'm playing The Division 2. And as I said to a couple of people recently, I very early on was like, Division 2 is rubbish. It's just like the first one. The first one burnt me. And that was my issue with the first one. I loved the first one until they put an update in when I was level 27 and decided to make the game impossibly difficult. And I never, quote unquote, finished it. I never got to level 30 because it was too hard after they put an update in. I started the Division 2 and it felt like the first one, and the graphics were fucking awful. It's like, oh, that's a nice looking truck with those hexagonal wheels, and the advertisement on the side of that building is just a blur, and I can't really see what this object is because the pop-in is so bad. It was just awful. And I wasn't having a lot of fun playing it because I felt like it was like the first one. It felt too hard. It felt too difficult to play, and that sort of stuff. The conversation I had with somebody at work was that I was like, "This game's fucking awful," and they were like, "Yeah, but have you got this upgrade? Have you got that upgrade? Have you done this? Have you done that?" I think they were like level 18 at that point. I think I was level 6. So I was like, well, I haven't got that, and I haven't done that, and I haven't been there. And I was like, look, short version is, I'll go back, I'll play it again, I'll see how I get on, but at the moment, not really loving it. And the issue I have at the moment is I don't want to give a review. Reason being is, I've been in situations before where I've given reviews on things, and then that thing has turned on me. Oh, this thing's great, this thing's wonderful, this thing's fantastic. Oh man, it's the best ever. Oh, you should get it because it's great. Then I go and do it, and it's like, why is this rubbish? Why is this is terrible? I'm going to set it on fire because it's awful. And that's how I feel right now about the Division 2. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to turn it on and it be terrible. I have played it. I've played it a few times. since my initial review, I've leveled up a bit. I'm not up to where it was Tim at work that I spoke to. I'm not up to level 18 where he was because I haven't played it all that much. But I am still playing it. So take from that what you will. I've bought another game which I've only played a handful of times, which I'd like to get back to. But when your time is limited, you have to kind of focus. So I'm putting my time into the Division 2 at the moment until that changes for whatever reason. I'm not going to say, whether I finish it or what. The other game I got, which people were like, oh, I'm not sure about that, is a game called World War Z, based on the popular book and film, although there is no similarity between the book and the film other than the name. World War Z is made by the people who made the franchise Left 4 Dead, and the review is if you want Left 4 Dead 3, buy World War Z. One of the nice things they've put in it is the pyramid system, so zombies can climb up each other like a pyramid. That's a lot of fun to deal with. Short version is, if you have played and enjoyed Left 4 Dead at any point in time, this could be the game for you. I played it a handful of times. It felt very Left 4 Dead. It's third person, not first person, and it's very go here, defend this. Piles of zombies are piling up on each other. Deal with it. You can get like really cool guns. You get like mounted weapons and stuff. And yeah, if you're missing Left 4 Dead, if you ever played Left 4 Dead, it's 4-player, but it has a single player option, which I'm playing it through. The AI is reasonable. If you go down, they'll come and heal you. They sort of heal each other, so you don't have to worry about them. And they will deal with zombies fairly well. So yeah, if you like that sort of thing, then it was cheap. That was the other thing. It was cheap when it came out. It was only 35 quid on release. Which sometimes a good sign, sometimes a bad sign. I refer you back to State of Decay, which, I think in the first week they sold 3 million copies of it or something. Who's to say whether that was because it was cheap or not? World War Z was cheap, which I've got, I think it was getting like 7.5 out of 10, or 75% if you Sam, which is a game, that sort of score I'm prepared to pay money for and play. I have done, and I enjoyed it, and I will go back to it if I ever get the time. And the only other game that, because I got all 4 javelins in Anthem, and then was like, I'm not gonna play you now because I've got other stuff to play. The one downside about Anthem was the leveling up system was weird. Like I don't know why they've got it. I've never played a game like that takes so long to level up. Just strange. Everything else I really enjoyed about it, but that was me. The other game that's on my, if I had more time I'd be playing, is a game called Surviving Mars. Survival RTS game. You have to survive on Mars and build colonies, and you colonize Mars. Simple. Only thing is, it isn't simple. It's really, really difficult because I'm not very smart, so it's hard for me to understand these things. But I was starting to get into it, and it seemed like it gave a bit more of a tutorial the last time I played the main game, which was making it a lot easier. Not a lot easier, but it was making it easier for me to play. So yeah, another one on my list of, if I had more time, I'd be playing that. So far, two weeks of doing this podcast, and there's been 2 podcasts. So that's a good sign. Sorry, I've got to have a drink. I've got a tickle, so 2 seconds. Oh, man. Yeah, if I could stop saying and things like that, that would be good. hopefully we'll get time to do another podcast next week. Football podcast has moved days, so I've tried to sort of capitalise on the freed up Tuesday to try and record this one. Obviously at this point in time I'll have to try and watch more films and play more games and find more things to moan about. But yeah, that's kind of everything on my list, and that is kind of that. Obviously, I would say obviously, it's obvious by now if you're watching on YouTube, I'm still not doing the camera thing. Recent podcasts I've coded since I've started doing this one, I'm struggling even more to put myself on camera. So I'm still steering away from putting this on camera. Maybe if I can get my fat ass back in the gym and sort out that, maybe I'll put it on camera. Or maybe if I can find a way to just put my face on. Although my face is a train wreck at the moment as well. So, YouTubers, I'm sorry, you'll just have to listen. Sorry for the tickly cough. I'll save you from that and I'll end it there. So yeah, thank you very much, people. Goodbye. So there you go. What do you think of that? Another one in the bag. Another one done. Cool. YouTube watchers, jump on and make sure that you're subscribed, drop comments, things like that. Everybody should jump over to the Cookiecast.com, use our social media features, our email features. Drop me a line, tell me what you'd rant about if you were on the podcast. Maybe we'll get you on. So yeah, just want to say a big thanks to everyone for listening. It's a big deal that people have actually listened to this one. So big thank you from me. And until next time, I'll say bye-bye.